A black shadow stood quietly beside Lin Dong, and within a dozen feet of where it stood, the ground remained untouched, not a single crack visible. Evidently, the ferocious assault from Qin Shi had failed to penetrate or cause any damage. Within the towering hall, numerous eyes contracted in surprise at this spectacle, followed by audible gasps and incredulous expressions. Who exactly was this shadowy figure? Was it powerful enough to repel even a demon commander like Qin Shi? A puppet? Moments later, some attendees noticed that the shadow's face was wooden and hollow, indicating the absence of any intelligence. This shadow was indeed a puppet, one on par with a demon commander. The revelations left those observing shaken, their throats constricted with disbelief. At the front of the grand hall, Chen Tong and his companions, previously despondent upon witnessing Qin Shi's arrival, now paused in astonishment. Their gaze was locked on the young man standing beneath the shadow's protection, the same one they recognized, his expression bearing a tranquil smile, deceptively profound. Gradually, Chen Tong and his team began to comprehend why their formidable ally General Yin, despite his notorious character, would willingly regard this youth as a respected elder brother. Compared to the reckless little Yin, this smile-bearing figure proved to be far more daunting. Trying to halt me with a mere puppet? Qin Shi's expression contorted, before he let out a piercing roar. Bursting radiant golden light emanated from his body as he unleashed a torrential flurry of punches, each transforming into charging golden lions aimed towards the devouring heavenly corpse. Yet, the puppet stood immobile, palms barely flicking open to engulf each and every attack destined to cripple a formidable opponent of the perfect death mystique stage. Blam blam blam. As Qin Shi's fierce blows landed upon the devouring heavenly corpse with a thunderous echo, the black figure remained undisturbed. Even amidst the overwhelming assaults, its stance remained resolute and unyielding. With the golden radiance dimming, a breathless Qin Shi leapt backwards, his expression changing as he regarded the impervious puppet before him. Xuzhong, it appears you've attracted some trouble. That kid is anything but simple, Qin Shi said, glancing at the now pensive Xuzhong seated on his throne. To deploy a puppet with capabilities akin to a demonic beast general? Hardly an average opponent. Brash enough to invade my Thunder Abyss Mountain. You seem to be quite the challenge, replied Xuzhong as he fixated his shadowy gaze upon Lin Dong. Lin Dong smiled. His hand grasped loosely around the dissolving remnants of a glass of wine, and with each stride toward Xuzhong, an effulgent green light emerged from within him. Swirling into a vibrant cluster of blue dragon patterns, the intense roar echoed and reverberated through the towering structure. The pressure. This is the might of the Dragon Clan? Awe and horror swirled through the watching crowd. As the overpowering aura emanated from Lin Dong, even demonic beasts around them felt a palpable sense of threat. Yet, it bewildered many that this incredible power could emanate from a mere human. The awe only deepened within Chen Tong and his party, seeing the young figure in an increasingly mysterious light. I'll leave Shadow Guard to you, little Yin, Lin Dong muttered with focused eyes directed towards Xuzhong. Take care, elder brother. Little Yin paused before complying, his trepidation evident despite the calm appearance of Lin Dong, who operated at a merely minor death mystique stage. I'll leave this puppet to you, Qin Shi. Once this child is subdued, it'll become inert, Xuzhong sneered, a trace of ferocity surfacing. Ha ha ha, a fair trade. A puppet capable of rivaling a paragon at the peak of the perfect completion of the death mystique stage. Even Lord Qin Shi, as the head of a major power, would be incredibly covetous and lusted for it. Upon hearing Xuzhong's words, his eyelids twitched, then he nodded. At this juncture, there was no way he could refuse. Though relinquishing such a powerful puppet would rend his heart, now was not the time for sentiments. I'll make short work of this young pest. Xuzhong clasped his palms together. Black light surged and raged over his body, and then he began to swell. His skin darkened rapidly, tigress patterns appearing. Steel-like, jet-black tiger fur sprouted from his body, and in a span of a few breaths, Xuzhong had transformed into a half-beast form, reeking of terrifying malice. Everyone could distinctly sense the formidable power lurking within that half-beast body, the sort of force that could cause mountains to crumble. It was the combat form of the Abyssal Tiger clan. Young pest, I'll find a nice burial ground for you brothers, right here in Thunder Abyss Mountain. Cackles of malice shone from Xuzhong's tiger-like face, bone-chilling. You can keep that ground for yourself? Lin Dong chuckled. Then, with a tap, a resounding of dragons echoed as his body swiftly transformed into a flash of lightning. As he streaked out, his hand clenched and Thunder Emperor's scepter shimmered into existence, with dazzling thunderlight dancing. Roar! At this time, little Yin bellowed as well. Light surged with bloodlust. Then, he pounced onto the Shadow Guard, and the two wrestled together, their intense energy causing havoc all around. The Grand Hall was in a state of utter chaos. People hurriedly distanced themselves, fearful to be affected by the battle. Even Xuzhong and the others backed off, but their eyes were locked onto Meng Shan's group. They had some control over Thunder Abyss Mountain's defenses. If Lin Dong could truly defeat Xuzhong, they were confident they could control Thunder Abyss Mountain. Bang! Thunder Emperor's scepter, charged with thunder, rammed heavily into the tiger paw. Sparks flew. The shockwave caused by the collision between two stunning energies sent stone tables and chairs within 1,000 feet to shatter. With a calm face, Lin Dong moved, materializing like a specter above Xuzhong. With a wave of his arm, thunder resounded forth. Numerous streaks of lightning roared alongside the scepter's shadows, enveloping Xuzhong's vulnerable points. Abyssal golden body shroud. Xuzhong sneered. A low bellow, and strange black lights radiated from underneath his skin. The flickering black light made his body look as if it were made of black steel. Bam bam bam. That thunder pummeled Xuzhong's body, sparks flying as he stood unwavering. His strength as a demon commander was finally being revealed. And that's your best? Are you expecting me to take you seriously? While Xuzhong's eyes glinted with a strong light as those light attacks land on his body, he stared straight at Lin Dong with mockery, and then suddenly gripped his palm and swung a fist. Abyssal fist. Primordial energy engulfed Xuzhong's fist like a spewing volcano. Like a black tiger's roar, it held shocking intentions of death, charging at Lin Dong. Roar! In midair, Lin Dong became encircled by azure dragon light patterns, and then a massive arm swelled and transformed into an arm of the azure dragon, full of force. He met Xuzhong's onslaught in a head-on clash, bracing for the hit. Boom! Paw and palm raged against each other. For a moment, the air seemed to shimmer as if it had stopped. Then, a visible shockwave spread, leaving the Grand Hall in shatters. Massive columns shattered and giant rocks fell down. It was as if the entire Grand Hall was collapsing. Everyone scrambled to escape the Grand Hall, and then beheld the Grand Hall collapsing, truly in ruins. The entire mountain seemed to tremble at that moment. Knock! In the rubble, a figure shot out. The Thunder Emperor's scepter in his hand touched the ground heavily, tearing 1,000-foot-long deep trench, and then the figure finally came to a stop. In the rubble, massive stones sputtered as the ferocious Xuzhong stepped out with large strides. Where his footsteps landed, everything crumbled into powder. That frightening destructive power made one's eyes twitch intensely. Indeed, Xuzhong, one of the 8 demon commanders, had fanatically powerful combat abilities. Is that really your best shot? Xuzhong dashed forth, staring at Lin Dong, who had been blasted away with a sarcastic mocking laugh. With a flick of his heels, a mighty colossal stone was thrown out like a small hill, flinging aggressively toward Lin Dong. From that clash before, Xuzhong was clearly in the dominating position. Lin Dong looked up. Upon seeing the giant shadow storming over, a fiery fighting spirit crept out of his black pupils. Dragon roars, earth-shattering and heaven reverberating, echoed as the colossal boulder plummeted, announcing their presence in thunderous reverberations. In a flash, dragon light whirls of the azure dragon soared from within Lin Dong's body, a dragon tail unleashed to pulverize the rock into nothingness. Roar! 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 Deafening dragon roars perpetually emerged, striking every observer with an awe that left them breathless. Then, in sight. 100 dragon light whirls tore into the sky from the silhouette of a slender youth. 100 azure dragons charged, and at that moment, heaven and earth trembled in concert. Their clamor shook the heavens. 100 azure dragon light whirls burst forth, as a chorus of 100 roars heralded the heavy presence that swept through to induce an unspeakable terror. This might, splashing out, had countless demonic beasts throughout Thunder Abyss Mountain trembling in tremors that traveled their entire being. Alight on Thunder Abyss Mountain, all eyes were expressions of overwhelming shock as they gazed at the youth whose slender figure was enwrapped by 100 azure dragon light whirls. In every stream of azure dragon light, the hustle and robustness were palpable, leaving such unsettling terror in their wake that hearts were prodded by an intense fear. The sheer terror in those single, frail human arms was beyond imagination and betrayed such fearful might. But more than that, the aura, without a doubt, emanated from the Dragon Clan. So, could this young man ahead be connected to the Dragon Clan, counted amongst the 4 dominant forces? Formidable. The eyes of Chen Tong and the rest fixed on the spectacle, as they traded sidelong glances wearing strained smiles. Only then did they fully realize how absurd their skepticism had been that night. They questioned Lin Dong's capabilities. Furthermore, now, they finally comprehended why Lin Dong had thrown such exuberantly arrogant words that night, claiming that he and his 2 companions could eradicate the Thunder Abyss Mountain threat. It was, in fact, true that he possessed some such capital for such statements. Xuzhong, who had stepped forward, finally halted. He watched Lin Dong, circled by the 100 azure dragon light whirls, Yongshan from within Xuzhong's tiger eyes a solemn shade of light. So it's Dragon Clan Bodyforge martial arts? Now that's intriguing. Xuzhong's crimson tongue licked his lips as a cursed aura brewed in his eyes, growing with intensity. But no matter how powerful your tricks, your power still rests at none other than minor completion of the Death Mystique stage. Xuzhong stepped forth with thunderous force, manifesting as a stream of obsidian light that dashed out, fracturing the land along his path. The trail of destruction built into a gigantic fissure, a dark tiger that ravaged the earth with a roar, hurtling toward Lin Dong with a menacing snarl. Is that so? Azure dragons coiled in Lin Dong's eyes, his body, though frail, pumping with vigor akin to an endless ocean's tides. In a moment, his foot set as the earth split under his might. Crack. Spider web-like fissures, immense, spread for 1,000 yards to the horizon. As the atmosphere ruptured, all onlookers caught a glimpse of the tear at the fabric of space. Within the blink of an eye, before an audience of 1,000,000 stares, the azure-black light collision played out atop the mountain peaks. Bam! The shockwave, veined with azure and obsidian, erupted. Mountains crushed into specks of powder, primeval forests flattened to nothingness. At mid-height, an endless number of spectating figures floated, staring with disbelief at the chaos below. They directed their gaze to the impact's epicenter, at the gigantic crevice where 2 silhouettes faced off, their fists clashing with a symphony of force that rippled out with palpable shockwaves. Space itself distorted, bent, skewed by the caliber of power that unleashed. The brute collision, unduly, saw Lin Dong never step back a single inch. A perfect stalemate. An ice-cold gasp rang in the minds of an uncountable onlookers. Earlier, Lin Dong managed to withstand Xuzhong's assault, but visibly, his posture was much inferior in every exchange. The truth remained, irrespective of regard, that he was but minor completion of the Death Mystique stage, whereas this Xuzhong was a master of the perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage. On reason alone, a master of the Death Mystique stage attempting to stand firm against such a blessing from Xuzhong would end up as a mist of gore in microseconds. Today, though, Lin Dong's bodies might stood revealed, having reached a shocking degree few could fathom, let alone withstand. Young one, you've shown some real skill. Xuzhong snarled, his grin harbor as azure dragons danced around the lad ahead, twinned with azure dragons nestled in his eyes. You've got game too, replied Lin Dong, his ink-black orbs blazing with fighting spirit akin to erupting volcanoes. This was his first true clash against a master of this level, a battle that dampened his blood with an intense boiling. Xuzhong, verging on the revolution stage, was a degree of might that once read invincible to Lin Dong's eyes, and now lay a few steps away. He believed, wholeheartedly, that one day he would stand toe-to-toe with such pivotal presences, and that day would mark the return of Lin Dong to the East Profound region. On that day, he would reveal to all within the East Profound region that the wretch hunted down by the Yuan sect, fleeing like a cursing dog from the East Profound region, had sliced his way back. Old dogs of the Yuan sect, you've all better brace yourselves. Warfare and wrath poured from Lin Dong's pupils as he flashed a terrifyingly fanged grin to Xuzhong. Today, they would serve as his sharpening stones. 100 azure dragon light patterns coiled and roared around Lin Dong before he unleashed a punch, a blow that seemed to carry the belligerent intent surging within him. Azure Dragon Celestial Seal. The 100 azure dragon light patterns condensed under Lin Dong's fist. Before stepping into the death mystique stage, Lin Dong could only muster 50 such patterns within him. However, after his breakthrough in the tempering in the death flame spirit pool of the flame deity temple, his capabilities had improved remarkably again. With the punch unleashed, the entire Thunder Abyss mountain shook, the aura like the destruction of heaven and earth. The azure light sparkled in Xuzhong's eyes, his gaze growing increasingly grave. At this moment, he had finally dispelled all the underestimation in his heart. Cosmic Palm of the Abyss. Xuzhong retreated a few steps, primordial energy surging out like a sea. On both of his palms, a black giant tiger condensed. The giant tiger stepped through an enigmatic stride, its vast mouth as if it could hold the universe. Roar. Tiger's roar and dragon's cry echoed, and then the two terrifyingly fierce aggressions once again roared out. Instantly, the entire world trembled under their impact. One by one, gazes filled with shock looked at the two intersecting silhouettes. This battle was brutal to such an extent. At the start, nobody would have imagined that the human youth, who looked thin, could actually match a demon commander, who was renowned in the beast combat domain, in such a fierce battle. After this battle, regardless of the outcome, Lin Dong's name would spread far and wide in the beast combat domain. Roar. The blood-red light tiger let out a skyward roar, as little Yan's figure streaked by like a blood aura. His hand grabbed the Xuzhong massive rock directly, using it as a weapon. In a maniacal state, he smashed it viciously at the black silhouette in front. Poof, poof, poof. The black silhouette was equally savage. With every punch, the Xuzhong massive rock was blasted away, with bits and pieces being scattered everywhere. The next moment, the two figures collided heavily against each other. Poof! The space twisted as the two figures shot out. Then, they shattered two mountain peaks, sending piles of rocks flying all over the sky. As soon as this happened, the two figures flew out once more, engaging in another relentless bout. In another part of the sky, the battle also appeared intense. However, the main protagonist, Qin Shi, was excessively vexed. The puppet before him hardly dodged any of his attacks, and no matter how fierce Qin Shi's attacks were, he could not see any damage to the puppet's body. The attacks were useless, but, facing the counterattacks of the devouring heavenly corpse, he had to put up his full defense. Fortunately, although these attacks were powerful, they did not make him overly beleaguered. Still, it was such a humiliating combat to be in. This dang cursed thing. Qin Shi let out an audible roar, his offensive intensifying abruptly. However, the devouring heavenly corpse still held its wooden demeanor, fully absorbing all the attacks as it flickered and countered once again. Sounds like this puppet is peculiar. I can only hope that Xuzhong swiftly takes care of that darn brat. Qin Shi's expression darkened. He finally realized that he couldn't possibly win in this battle against the puppet. This further procrastination was clearly not in his favor. Although he was a demonic beast, it had its moments of exhaustion too. But the puppet before him wouldn't ever tire. So, if he prolonged this battle, it would just end with him fleeing in humiliation. Therefore, His only course of action was to hope that Xuzhong would handily beat Lin Dong. However, as he glanced at the terrifying battle below, his pupils constricted, and only then did a hint of unease start to well up within him. He began to regret somewhat his decision to participate in this battle. This sudden Lin Dong that had popped up didn't seem to be an easily handled fellow by any means. Boom! Lin Dong's eyes, heated by the surging belligerence, gleamed with a fiery passion. His figure raced out like lightning, his fists slamming out. Each punch carried the power of 100 Azure Dragon Light patterns. With his increasing strength and growing proficiency in the Azure Sky Dragon transformation, the Azure Dragon Light patterns condensing within him became increasingly solid. They no longer dissipated as quickly as before, as each blow he launched kept 100 patterns intact. Now, as long as he had sufficient energy within him, his attacks would stay at 100 Azure Dragon Light pattern level. At this level, refined combat techniques barely made a difference. It took absolute power to break through all styles. It was the epitome of force. The two figures intersected, and all that the crowd could see was the earth splitting apart as two figures were projected back, their feet skidding along for 1,000 zhong, leaving behind long trails. What a fierce battle! Gazes locked onto the two shooting silhouettes. At this moment, both Lin Dong and Xuzhong's clothing was torn, their extraordinarily powerful bodies covered in blood streaks. Even their breathings turned heavy from this intense exchange. Drip, drop. Blood dripped from Xuzhong's palm. Lin Dong grinned at him, the smile equally fierce. "Do you know I'm of the Abyssal Tiger clan?" Xuzhong raised his hand, surveying the blood covering it, then suddenly spoke. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed slightly. "What difference does it make? I wonder if you've heard about..." The redness in Xuzhong's eyes intensified, then, he slowly crouched down. Black light burst out from within him. Suddenly, all watched as his body swelled to an astonishing size at an alarming rate, the hard, needle-like black tiger fur sprouting swiftly. His limbs transformed into sharp, tiger claws. In mere moments, a gigantic grayish beast, over 1,000 feet in length, stepped into being atop Thunder Abyss Mountain. This massive tiger was armored with a layer of dull gray scales, and from its back extended huge gray spines, forming a pair of bone wings that glinted with a sharp, bone-chilling light. A fearsome aura of violence shot up to the heavens. The giant tiger stepped onto the peak and bellowed towards Lin Dong. Its fearsome voice wave directly created countless huge fissures. Within the roars, terrifying intent of murder resounded throughout the sky and earth. "That's..." Chun Tong and the others watched, their eyes suddenly narrowing. The Abyssal Tiger clan's ultimate combat form, the Abyssal Tiger body? So Xuzhong was finally pushed to this point. The 1,000-foot giant tiger raised its head to the sky and let out a long-sustained roar. A terrifying sound wave tore the ground apart. Even above the sky, black clouds gathered due to the terrorizing aura. That giant tiger, much like an earth-destroying abomination, its blood-red giant eyes, filled with awe-inspiring intent to kill. Above the nearby sky, the actions of those hovering figures retreated hastily. At this level of combat, to be caught up would mean certain death. How can he drive Xuzhong to this? As they retreated, many expressions became complex. Xuzhong was of the Abyssal Tiger clan, whose battle capabilities were astonishing to start with. This ultimate combat form was only used when facing an opponent at the Demon Commander level. But now, some people looked at a slender figure far in the distance. Although it looked tiny compared to Xuzhong's 1,000-foot tiger body, nobody dared to underestimate him. Even Xuzhong had reserved that disdain. A battle of this magnitude wasn't something often seen in the beast combat domain. Even the Abyssal Tiger body was activated. Qin Shi, whose attention was being hacked away by the devouring heavenly corpse, glanced over, then his eyes widened, his expression serious. With a look of surprise, he regarded Lin Dong in the distance. "Is that brat really that strong? He's truly a freak." Qin Shi was also one of the 8 great demon commanders. Every day hordes of beasts would clash with Thunder Abyss Mountain. The two fought quite often, So he knew how boundlessly powerful Xuzhong was with the Abyssal Tiger body activated. In normal times, the number of people who could drive him to this level could be counted on one's fingers across the entire beast combat domain. Just who is this brat? Not only does he possess such fearsome draconic physical training arts, but he also has such a troublesome puppet. Qin Shi's eyes flickered. He had some regrets about butting in. He'd only agreed to lend a hand because he heard that it was just little Yin they were dealing with. Who could have expected the emergence of Lin Dong, a wild card so ruthless? Lin Dong looked up, his gaze trained on the giant beast of the mountain. He could feel an extremely dangerous fluctuation emanating from the body. It was clear that Xuzhong had pushed his fighting power to the limit. The name Demon Commander was indeed worthy of its reputation. Lin Dong, you die under the might of my abyssal ghost body. You'll die with no injustices. The giant tiger lowered its head, bloody eyes focused on Lin Dong. Immediately, its huge mouth opened, and an energy fluctuation that sent shivers up one's spine gathered wildly. A streak of grayish-black light shot out instantly. That gray beam of light directly pierced through the void. All they could see was a brief flash of gray light in the sky. Then, before anyone could blink, that light beam, brimming with devastating energy, slammed mercilessly into Lin Dong's body. The deep, muffled sound echoed. The earth beneath that spot instantly crumbled. That slight figure flew backward, instantly shattering several mountains along its path. Only when it rammed into the 10th did it come to a complete stop. As everyone looked at the line of collapsed mountains, they were left slack-jawed. So this was Xuzhong's combat power after activating the Abyssal Tiger body? Terrifying to this degree. That blow earlier would have left even a seasoned perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage expert crippled in an instant. Wonder if Lin Dong's still alive. Countless eyes focused on the ruins of the mountain range. Soon, they saw a hand emerge from between the boulders, pushing the rocks aside, a slightly disheveled figure becoming visible. In the midst of numerous astonished gazes, Lin Dong raised his head. A trace of blood could be seen on the corner of his mouth, while above his shoulder, a scarlet, human head-sized cauldron of heaven burning hovered. A fist-sized indentation could be seen on its body. So he used the furnace cauldron to block that fatal strike. As their eyes fell upon the scarlet cauldron, a surprised look crossed their faces. Although it's not as savage as he imagined, a sharpness surged in Lin Dong's dark eyes. His form streaked out, ghost-like, as he clutched the Thunder Emperor's scepter, once more manifesting. A thunderous rumble resounded in the sky as dark clouds converged above them. Boom! From atop the Thunder Emperor's scepter, lightning surged forth. The 9 thunder dragons atop it seemed to come alive, breaking free and hurtling out. They relentlessly struck the shadowy figure of the titanic tiger beneath Lin Dong. Bam! 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 The thunder dragons exploded, the flashes of light overwhelming Xuzhong's massive form. However, it seemed these bolts couldn't pierce the peculiar, dark scales that cloaked his body. Dare you think such a degree of attack could crack the Lord of the Abyss defenses? Sneering laughter erupted from Xuzhong's vast mouth. His eyes then chilled as a black beam flashed forth to strike Lin Dong with unyielding force. Upon sight of this, Lin Dong swiftly retreated. The heaven-burning cauldron expanded in an instant before him. Xuzhong's attack was, indeed, formidable. Even for Lin Dong, using his body to hard-shoulder the assault wasn't a choice. Clang! A metallic tone echoed. The heaven-burning cauldron soared backward. On its surface, an indentation reappeared. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes at this fact. The level of defense the heaven-burning cauldron offered was clear to him, and to attain such etchings wasn't trivial. Thump! Lin Dong wielded the Thunder Emperor's scepter, his foot fiercely pressing against the heaven-burning cauldron. Within a flash, he appeared above Xuzhong, where his scepter transformed into a storm of fierce strikes, raining down onto the vast form below. Upon each strike, azure dragon patterns twirled. The ferocity of the force was formidable, to say the least. Clatter! Sparks danced across Xuzhong's immense body, but the obsidian scales, harder than the world's defenses themselves, remained unmoved. "Ha, you're like a clown now, aren't you?" Xuzhong cackled. Bony wings, sharp enough to tear through the very space, were unleashed. They aimed for Lin Dong with vicious precision. A multitude of gazes followed this pivotal scene, their lips pursed in contemplation. Xuzhong's defenses, utterly terrifying. The most formidable moves of the Abyssal Tiger clan are the Abyssal Ghost Body and the Abyssal Armor. Lin Dong won't be able to inflict any damage on Xuzhong if he can't shatter this armor. The battle will be without surprise. That Abyssal Armor can't be cracked easily. Qin Shi fought Xuzhong and couldn't pierce his Abyssal Armor even after a day of relentless assault. Their battle ended in a tie. Poor chap, Lin Dong. Still, it's not every day you manage to push Xuzhong this far. The Thunder Emperor's scepter struck the Pangda body of Xuzhong. The force that struck Lin Dong's arms numb was striking. His face darkened slightly. Xuzhong was proving to be quite a formidable opponent, more so than he had anticipated. Shush! Sharp bony wings flew at alarming speed. Lin Dong retreated hastily, but strands of his hair were still sliced by the breath of that fierce assault. Upon activation of the Abyssal Ghost Body, his attack, defense, and speed had all seen significant improvements. What a troublesome Abyssal Armor! Lin Dong withdrew, looking at Xuzhong, as if covered in turtle-like armor, murmuring to himself, "Lin Dong giving up now?" Xuzhong glared at Lin Dong, his eyes filled with derision. The sight of Lin Dong's subpar attempts gave him an immense thrill. Lin Dong glanced at Xuzhong, frowned slightly, and responded with a level tone, "You jest too soon." "Is that so?" Xuzhong roared to the skies. "You can't even breach my defenses. What can I expect from you?" Lin Dong's eyes narrowed. His gaze swept over Xuzhong's impenetrable Abyssal Armor. Without a word, he pointed a finger. Essence blood flew out, and in the palm of his hand, a strange light array swiftly took form. As essence blood poured into the light array, a deafening roar followed. Crowd watched as the light array swelled to an astonishing size in the blink of an eye, reaching several thousand feet. It hid the sun and moon above, a sight indeed awe-inspiring. Xuzhong gazed at the gargantuan array, his eyes flitting with bewilderment. An ancient cosmic formation, where Qian represents heaven and Kuren represents the earth, reverses the cosmic order and disassembles the elements of the world. Lin Dong's hands swiftly alternated signs, while the light array rotated in reverse direction. A peculiar vibration, powerful and storm-like, gathered within. The light array quivered, and immediately, a massive beam of light whistled down, instantly enveloping Xuzhong's colossal body within its beam. As the beam blanketed him, everyone's pupils shrank. They witnessed the Abyssal Armor, which could resist the full-powered attacks of even the peak-perfected Death Mystique stage experts, melting away at an astonishing rate from Xuzhong's body. Moreover, as the Abyssal Armor melted, the heavy aura of killing intent that had surrounded Xuzhong was quickly dissipating. What's happening? Everyone was shocked. How is this possible? Xuzhong, too, was utterly alarmed. Under the illumination of that light beam, he felt that his body and the primordial energy inside of him were gradually being decomposed and scattered. "Let's see what you have left to block with now." Lin Dong's visage turned grotesquely menacing then. He burst forward, his hand clenching, hundreds of azure dragon light patterns coiling around him. He unleashed a savage punch onto Xuzhong's body that had lost the protection of the Abyssal Armor. Bang! A deep, muffled sound resounded as Xuzhong let out a shrill scream. His 1,000-foot-tall body was directly sent flying, crumbling mountains under its weight. Afloat in the sky, the light array spun. The light beam enveloped Xuzhong once more. "Weren't you so arrogant?" Lin Dong appeared behind Xuzhong in a manner akin to a phantom. His feet writhed, transforming into the form of an azure dragon's hand, which was then savagely whipped out. Bang! The colossal tiger was once more sent soaring away, hot blood pouring down like a rain of blood. "Shout for me one more time?" Lin Dong stood amidst the blood rain, his eyes flashing, and a chilling smile spread across his face. With a move, he scooped up a massive mountain peak, tenuously catching its tip with both hands. Like a giant mallet, he mercilessly hammered the mountain peak down onto Xuzhong's colossal body. Bang, bang, bang. Loud, dull sounds reverberated out, and the atmosphere of the vast territory seemed to freeze. Everyone watched as the youth who lifted the mountain and pummeled it against Xuzhong's body, causing miserable roars and incessant, soft banters, had their faces frozen with disbelief. Shout if you can? Bang. Shout again? Bang. Qin Tong and the others watching from afar were petrified by the sight. Mountains, now wielded like hammers, battered Xuzhong's colossal body with an air of extreme shock. Miserable roars echoed across the horizon. Stunned, all witnessed this scene, and even minutes later, they still found it unbelievable. Who could have thought that Xuzhong, who had held the upper hand moments before, would plummet to such depths within an instant? How could this be? Qin Tong and the others repeated their stammered thoughts, their eyes remaining fixed on the immense light array floating overhead. The beam of light encapsulated Xuzhong, and whenever the vast primordial energy gushed out from his body's surface, it was dissolved by the beam. Was it the formation that led to Xuzhong's combat strength plummeting? Pondering this, everyone's gaze flickered. They instantly understood, but alongside that, they were filled with dread. What on earth was this light array? So powerful that not only could it dissolve the exceptionally powerful abyssal armor covering Xuzhong's body, it could even dismantle the primordial energy within his body. What a terrifying foe. Despite their unfamiliarity with the light array, it did not hinder their astonishment towards Lin Dong's eye-confusing display. Bam! The mountain in Lin Dong's hands finally couldn't withstand the powerful force, eventually exploding apart. Below him, Xuzhong's body was drenched in blood, countless bloodstains appearing. Even the white, ghastly bones were exposed. Lin Dong tossed aside the single remaining chunk of rock in his hand, panting softly. Looking down at the blood-soaked Xuzhong, who was in a wretched state, Lin Dong knew it wasn't that Xuzhong hadn't wanted to fight back. He was simply suppressed by the ancient cosmic formation, which restrained the primordial energy within his body. In other words, within this brief moment, Lin Dong had turned him into a powerless, mighty beast. This suppression was something only possible with Lin Dong's cultivation level, entering the death mystique stage. Only then could he activate the ancient cosmic formation and achieve such suppression. In the past, the ancient cosmic formation could only decompose some energies, but it was far from being capable of completely subduing a peak-perfected death mystique stage expert. Such an ability was truly extraordinary. Just imagining that a powerful opponent could only struggle to utilize the primordial energy in their body over a specific time frame was enough to convey its terrors. Though this time frame was extremely brief, it often proved enough to determine the outcome of many battles. Certainly, this ability was powered, but it was only effective if the target did not evade it. Xuzhong had been careless, unable to fathom the purpose of the array, and had been thoroughly ensnared. Clearly, Lin Dong was adept at pummeling a fallen opponent, seizing the opportunity to launch a relentless assault on Xuzhong, reducing him from his former formidable aura to a pitiful state. Above, the gigantic array began to tremble, and the light column enveloping Xuzhong started to waver. Although the ancient cosmic formation was powerful, it wasn't easy to completely subdue a powerhouse at the peak of perfect completion of the death mystique stage. Is it failing to suppress him? Lin Dong watched the scene with a faint smile. He then walked step by step towards the dark gray giant tiger. The latter's blood-red eyes were filled with hatred and a hint of fear. I'll have to cripple you first. Lin Dong stopped in front of Xuzhong, his hand grasping the Thunder Emperor's scepter. Lightning surged wildly along the scepter. Without hesitation, he thrust it deeply into Xuzhong's massive body. Roar! A piercing cry echoed as lightning flashed wildly across Xuzhong's body. His enormous body rapidly shrank, eventually transforming into a human form. The Thunder Emperor's scepter pierced through his shoulder, blood gushing out. Lin Dong pulled back the scepter and swung it forcefully, hitting Xuzhong and sending him flying hundreds of meters away. You've lost. Lin Dong calmly observed the pale Xuzhong, whose aura had weakened significantly, indicating the severe injuries inflicted by him. He no longer had the strength to fight. The battle had a clear winner. Amidst the watching crowd, a buzzing sound quickly arose. Nobody had anticipated such a dramatic outcome. Mengshan and General Yin looked equally pale, especially the former, who recalled his earlier attempt to capture Lin Dong and shivered with cold sweat. Fortunately, Lin Dong hadn't retaliated at that time. Otherwise, he wouldn't have escaped. Under the scrutiny of countless eyes, Xuzhong spat out blood, glaring at Lin Dong with hatred. You have quite a few tricks up your sleeve, but do you really think you can match me in a real fight? Lin Dong looked at Xuzhong with an odd expression. In a life-and-death battle, any tactic is fair game. As a demon commander, you shouldn't be saying such ridiculous things. Xuzhong hesitated momentarily, but his hatred didn't waver. Perhaps the battle over there has concluded. Lin Dong ignored Xuzhong, looking towards the distant sky. Blood-red light swirled there, accompanied by a tiger's roar. Bloodlight erupted, and a dark figure was flung out, leaving a deep scar on the ground. A blood-red figure descended from the sky. Little Yin, in his half-human, half-beast form, had numerous bloodstains on his body, making him even more terrifying. It was clear he had fought a fierce battle. Approaching with large strides, he grabbed the weakened shadow guard and flung him towards Xuzhong. Do you remember what I said when you took half of my heritage blood? I said, what's mine will eventually be returned to me. Xuzhong stared at the shadow guard flung beside him, his gaze darkening. He wiped the blood from his lips, recalling Little Yan's words. Back then, he never took a mere life mystique stage Lin Dong seriously. Now, this former insignificant opponent had truly toppled him. Hand over the heritage blood, Lin Dong said softly. Xuzhong wiped the blood from his face, his eyes darkening as he glared at Lin Dong and Little Yin. He stood up, grabbing the shadow guard beside him and looking at the countless onlookers. He never imagined he, Xuzhong, one of the 8 demon commanders, would end up in such a humiliating situation. Ha, for a demon commander like me to be defeated by you. It would be too embarrassing. Xuzhong muttered hoarsely. At this point, are you still trying to resist? Little Yin sneered. Xuzhong glanced at Lin Dong and Little Yin and suddenly smiled. Are you curious about this shadow guard? Lin Dong furrowed his brows. Let me show you his true identity. Xuzhong grinned, though his smile was twisted. He tore off the dark cloak covering the shadow guard, revealing a familiar face. That's Xuzhong. As the air suddenly stilled, an explosion of astonishment erupted. Everyone noticed that the appearance of the shadow guard was strikingly identical to Xuzhong, albeit with lifeless eyes. Could this be a puppet? This is my twin brother. However, I forcefully stripped him of his vitality right after birth, leaving him weak and ultimately leading to his death as he grew. Xuzhong's hand caressed the face of the shadow guard, his smile chilling one to the bone. After his death, I used a secret technique to transform him into a doomed ghost fetus. Although vile, this technique has an advantage. Eventually, his energy will be completely transformed into mine. Ha! This shadow guard is essentially the furnace cauldron I nourished using my own blood brother. Amid the silence, many faces reflected aghast reactions upon hearing these words, startled by the malicious nature of Xuzhong. However, it's finally time for my brother to repay me. Xuzhong grinned as eerie bloodlines began to sprawl beneath his feet, forming a blood array covering both him and the shadow guard. His hand acted like a sharp blade plunging into the shadow guard's chest, causing streams of blood to gush out. Instantly, the shadow guard's body withered, while Xuzhong's aura bloated at an incredibly monstrous rate, reaching the breaking point to enter the revolution stage. A terrifying pressure wave spread wildly, forcing everyone to stay at bay. That bastard! Little Yin watched the scene, shocked and enraged, apparently never expecting such a betrayal. Is Xuzhong actually aiming to enter the revolution stage? Cries of astonishment resonated throughout the area. They could feel an air of suffocating strength rapidly taking shape. What should we do, big brother? Little Yin solemnly asked Lin Dong, his eyes fixated. Lin Dong looked at the ecstatically laughing Xuzhong, a murderous aura almost tangible in his gaze. Under the watchful eyes of onlookers, he slowly raised his hand, folding his fingers into a specific shape, one finger pitch black, another gleaming silver, seeming to emit lightning. Twin brother, this was not how you were supposed to be used. With each drop of blood sliding from his fingers, the ancient runes subtly appeared there. Lin Dong's eyes were pale as he announced softly, "So it's time for you to die." A crimson line of energy erupted from Lin Dong's fingertips, mingling black and lightning aura. The two forces complemented each other perfectly like yin and yang. The crimson beam pierced through the air, effortlessly shattering the terrifying energy field around Xuzhong. Moments later, it penetrated Xuzhong's forehead directly.